This International Men's Day, I'd like to underscore the importance of men in general because they really do get a bad rep. I've had the pleasure of having quite a few positive influences in my life coming from my father, grandparents, my brother, uncles, even my cousins, because I have a very large male populace in my family. It really is the way that I learned how I should be treated as a female, and at the same time to toughen my skin because my brother would never let me punk out of most situations. I'm really grateful for the ones in my family, immediate family, extended family, and my TV family too. Media is largely dominated by men, from the crew to the production team behind the scenes, and a lot of them have supported me through multiple parts of my development, from words of encouragement and guidance to simply making sure that even on the days when things are going haywire, I'm still able to deliver effectively. And I really do appreciate all of them for just that, not just on TV, but my radio guys too. So, happy International Men's Day to the men around the globe, but particularly the men in my life. I appreciate you, enjoy it, and we celebrate you.
And we appreciate you, Ayinka Will. Welcome back to the Now Morning Show. And it's on a day when men are front and center, they're in focus. Now it's time for a conversation with a man named after a person responsible for some big tunes like Tobacco Road, Let Me Be Good to You, and You'll Never Find Another Love Like Mine.
Tell them.
He's a musician in his own right, though, as the lead vocalist for Freetown Collective. Lou Lyons, he joins us to share a bit. Welcome, sir. How you doing?
Thank you very much, Dike. As a heavy intro, thanks.
No, well, and we're going even deeper because you have described music as home. Now, I want you to speak to music you can speak to music in general, or you could get it a little more specific by talking about New Calypso. But how is it as a utility or a vehicle for expressing self?
Just this week, I was thinking about that and sharing some thoughts about that. And as today is International Men's Day, I have to give my father credit for that. I grew up in a home with a hi-fi system and lots of LP records. So as far as I could remember, I have been experiencing music at the highest fidelity. And it's not just listening pleasure. Listening to music with enough detail can excite your emotions in a certain way. So at a very young age, I was able to be in touch with my emotions through listening music, and I knew that music had to play a very important role in my life because of the portal it created for me to get in touch with my emotions.
And even going through that portal, getting in touch with the emotions, how do we scale that or fine-tune it to looking at music to express or to help interpret masculinity?
Well, I would have tried several other vehicles. My education, my ambitions would have all been with a view to be of service. That's one of the things my parents really instilled in me, that to be a member of society of some repute, you have to be able to see yourself as a tool of service, an instrument of service. And the others didn't work out as well as I would have hoped. I was very idealistic about my other attempts at making a living for myself, but also being at peace with myself. And music did that in a way that none of my other pursuits permitted me to.
Now, when people talk about masculinity, when people talk about being a man, many times, you have to be assertive, you have to be forceful. People talk about alpha male. But you have had conversations about, because there are levels to everything, but you've spoken about alpha versus beta male. And take us through some of that, thank you, and where you consider yourself and why it's all right to do so.
Now, you answer, just encourage us to talk the truth, right? So let's try and talk the truth responsibly and safely. I realize that it's largely, masculinity is largely made up of fallacies. It's not real, because there's this non-exhaustive checklist of what you must achieve in order to be a man. And for every man who is a man to himself, there's a man out there who thinks that he's not man enough, or a woman who thinks that he's not man enough. So that immediately invites a need for the man himself to do some interrogation on where he lives inside of his own soul, inside of his own emotions, and inside of his own psyche. So what I encourage my blood brother and my brothers in arms to do is to spend some time with yourself. Lock away the cell phone, lock away any other form of stimuli, and allow the thoughts that society asks you to put away because you have to focus on being functional all the time. You have to focus on showing up for everybody else but yourself. Allow those things to bubble over. Allow that threshold of your emotions to break. Allow your emotional levees to break so that you can discover what you have been shelving and to discover what you have been hiding so that you can achieve what I will call wholeness.
And this actually kind of reminds me of one of the things that my father would be saying, and his voice a little deeper than mine. Son, the worst, but he didn't say banton, but one of the worst things that you can take in life is basket, is somebody telling you, if your name man, ellipse, dot.
Yeah. That's chain up supreme. Yeah.
And he says, you suppose, and he actually didn't talk about like doing shadow work the way that you would have just kind of outlined, but knowing for yourself, so having it intrinsically being knowledge versus extrinsically, and having someone needing to validate. But looking at and this is something that you've spoken about already, so I want to ask you, what are the 4 agreements?
Wow.
And how do they tie in to
I will never remember them 4 agreements.
No,
the first one is to be impeccable with your word. The second one is, help me out.
Don't take anything personally.
Don't take anything serious personally.
Don't make assumptions.
Don't make assumptions and always do your best. So the first one, to be impeccable with your word, is to understand that your word as spells. What you say will come to pass, because out of the fullness of your heart, your mouth will speak. So it's not just words, right? And not taking things personally is an invitation to yourself to understand that you only have one vantage point in the story, and to base your entire execution, your entire decision based on how you interpret a situation is not being fair to everyone else around you, but it's also not being fair to yourself. The third one.
Not making assumptions.
Not making assumptions. Men get a bad rap for not communicating enough. And that's because I don't think that comes out of the blue. Men also get a bad rap for not being decisive enough. So there's this encouragement for men to always be on the fly and always be ready to execute at the drop of a hat. But as men, we are to encourage ourselves to not make assumptions, ask questions, lots of questions, even ask yourself questions, so that you can feel fortified that your next foot or your next step is your best step. That might be your only step. And the last one, always do your best. I think as men, we are all acquainted with that, because life becomes very intimate with us when we're not doing our best. There's always somebody waiting to tell us, hey, you could do a better job than that. What kind of man you gonna make, boy? Pull up your pants, you miss a loop, your shoelace untie, you ain't open the door for she. And so it's to understand that while the world will give us all these reminders that there's always room for improvement, it's to understand that we must give ourselves those standards first.
And looking at that room for improvement, looking at those lessons from the world, and I want you to look within yourself. And while I ask, how easy is it for you to be the man that you want to be through the music that you do, through interactions, this is public and private, and in your own head?
It's difficult. It's really difficult. One of the things you and I would have talked about in one of our previous conversations is striving for unity of yourselves. Understanding that you are made up of several selves. There's a home self, there's a public self, there's a TV self, there's a father self. And sometimes it's not really easy to find congruence in all of those selves. I guess that's why you and Nancy said we had to practice just telling the truth. But it's important for me to try. And a good friend of mine told me, sometimes you just have to let the hard things be hard. And being the men that we want to be is hard. We must first admit that, but know that it is also possible to try.
How liberating is it to be in a group, literally free tone, that allows for that level of vulnerability, that level of raising each other up? I think as simple as and yet profound as being able to give your brethren a hug, and not the bottle bro hug, both arms around. You're not protecting yourself with one hand like that, but just that all embracing, and know that there is love within that.
There's theory and there's practice. So the theory of freetown is we're free to be, and we're free to at least try to be our best. The practice of that is we have to find the courage to make the space what we say the space should be. That requires real effort. It requires putting yourself on the chopping block every time you decide to live up to what the aspiration is.
And I want to thank you for that courage to put one foot in front of the other, the work that you and the entire group is doing. And you know, sometimes things can get lost in the pretty music, in the BPM sometimes. So I just want to quote you.
Me?
In terms of saying,
Me?
I want to be who I want to be. Why you want to put another thing in front of me?
Come on, man. From birth.
From birth. I never fit them pants and shirt.
Kings
of the earth.
And I know.
And I know.
What?
I'm worth.
That's right.
So I think there's a fitting end to this conversation, especially on a day that we're celebrating men. We want to thank you so much, Lou Lyons.
Thank you, DK.
And we're almost on the home stretch. This is the Now Morning Show. Stay with us. We come back with more.
Trinidad I come from, but I don't sing about rum.